shark, swallow you whole. I value my neck a lot more than $3,000, Chief. Find him for 3, but I'll catch him and kill him for 10. $10,000 for me by myself. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Mr. Vaughn, I pulled a tooth the size of a shot glass out of the wrecked hull of the boat out there, and it was the tooth of a great white.
A what?
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Love to prove that, wouldn't you? Get your name into the National Geographic.
No, I'm not saying that this is not the shark. It probably is, Martin. It probably is. It's a man-eater. It's extremely rare for these waters. But the fact is that the bite radius on this animal is different than the wounds on the victim.
Get out of that boat! Well, this is not a boat accident. There wasn't any propeller. There wasn't any coral reef. And it wasn't Jack the Ripper.
It was a shark.
I'll never put on a life jacket again.
Thank you very much for returning back for another episode of the Jaws Obsession, where we are always here to share with you, prove to you, convince you, or remind you that Jaws is the greatest movie of all time. Thank you very much for returning for episode 82, Vaughn's Reality. Yes, that is not a typo, not Vaughn's Reality. That's right, Vaughn's Reality, as in this is the part 5 of 5 of the Selectmen series. Thanks again for your time and listening. This is your host, Ryan Dacco, and author of the Book of Quint. This is going to be a very special episode. This is going to wrap up the Selectmen series. For the last 4 episodes, we went through each of the selectmen, and now it's Mayor Vaughn's chance to be in the spotlight. If you are a listener to the Jaws Obsession, even if it's for a few episodes, but if you've been here, if you've gone through episode 1 all the way to this episode 82, one thing that we've prided ourselves, all of us here, you listening out there, and all of us here in the Jaws Obsession, is that we know this movie greater than any other Jaws fans in the history of the film. That you have an insight into this film that's greater than ever before. And it's growing with every new episode. And this episode will be no different. This episode is going to enhance your understanding of Jaws in a way that you've never thought possible. And I'm very excited to present this to you. In the research of this, there are some revelations that were found. You are going to reach a conclusion and an understanding and some revelations that have never been revealed in the Jaws world before. And it can only have been done by going through each of the selectmen and getting to this point. And what we're going to do in this episode is we are actually going to take you from Jaws 1 and we are going to go into Jaws 2 to show the progression and the changes that happened to the Board of Selectmen on Amity Island. And in doing that, we're actually going to have some amazing conclusions were drafted up here. And I had John Tedder on the line. Over the last couple of weeks, I was making sure, I was like, hey, can you double check this? Because I think this is what this is telling me. I really am amazed at what the conclusions are here. These were always there. It's just you have to shine a spotlight on them in order to highlight them. And that's what the Jaws Obsession has been doing with the movie Jaws. But what we're expanding the Jaws universe. We're pulling back. We're opening up the scope of the lens, and we are looking at the details as a whole. And in doing that, we are actually going to be able to tell you the true ending to Jaws. The true ending, what happens after those credits roll? What happens after Matt Hooper and Chief Brody swim ashore at the end of Jaws? This is a very involved episode, so we're going to get right into it. There's a specific order to all of this. I'm going to try to do it the best I can. I have notes everywhere, so I'm going to try to get to this in the most cohesive way I can in order for you to understand the conclusion to this Selectman series. Very exciting. So I would like to wish everybody a happy Halloween out there. We are now on the eve of Halloween. I'm recording this on October 30th. It's been a great month, one of my favorite months. Fall colors and all the energy is very heightened out there. There's a lot of creative energy flowing around, and it's exciting to feel that. I want to wish happy birthday to Mr. Richard Dreyfuss, October 29th. Yesterday was his birthday. From the Jaws Obsession and all of you out there, we want to wish Mr. Richard Dreyfuss a happy birthday and many, many more. So happy birthday to him. There's a lot to unpack here. I have 2 whiteboards filled with notes. I have a legal pad of notes over to my right. I have Jaws pulled up on one flat screen to my left. And the center screen, I have Jaws 2, notes on another screen to the side. We are loaded up and ready to go. I hope you're ready, so please grab your beverage of choice, coffee or apple cider. I'm going to try to present this so we can reach to the logical conclusion of all this, because there's a lot of material to go over. But one thing that I want to highlight is that the Book of Quint was written within this vacuum. And there are elements that we are going to go into the Book of Quint in order to show there is a need for a prequel novel to these 2 movies in order to help tie some of these loose ends and make the cohesion between the 2 films work. It really is amazing. I'm fascinated by the work that Carl Gottlieb had done by adapting and rewriting the Dorothy Tristan and Howard Sackler screenplay of Jaws 2. Some elements that he changed and moved around, those would lead to some amazing dynamic revelations that are coming out here. At the end of this episode, I hope you feel just the same as me. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with Mayor Larry Vaughn. The reality of Larry Vaughn. Since we went through the other actors that played the other 4 selectmen, we will get into Mr. Murray Hamilton. Let's just start off with Carl Gottlieb. He wrote about in his 25th anniversary edition of the Jaws log, over on page 199, the notes to chapter 6, he writes, Murray Hamilton reprised his role as mayor of Amity in the first sequel, Jaws 2. He was one of the great actors in the business, distinguishing himself in literally hundreds of films and television episodes. He began in the golden age of live television drama, appearing on Philco Television Playhouse, and then in episodic series like Gunsmoke, The Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The FBI, The Untouchables, and more. In film, he appeared in scores of potboilers and forgettable epics, as well as memorable movies like The Hustler, Anatomy of a Murder, Seconds, The Spirit of St. Louis. He was Mr. Robinson in The Graduate. Never a star, he was one of those reliable supporting players and co-stars who could always be counted on to supply a nuanced, thoughtful, and sensitive performance in almost any kind of drama or comedy. That's a very brief but comprehensive summary of Mr. Murray Hamilton and what he brought to movies in that era, and why he is regarded as one of the stars, one of the most memorable stars in Jaws and Jaws 2. He was just one of those character actors, and in my opinion, Jaws would not have worked if it wasn't for the character of Larry Vaughn to be portrayed in a realistic way, not over the top or bombastic, but in a realistic way that helped bring the reality of the situation onto the screen. And one of the most memorable characters, other than Quint, obviously you have the big 3. You have Quint, Brody, and Hooper, but then you have Larry Vaughn over on the side. And everybody always came away talking about that mayor. And it was all due to Murray Hamilton's career up until then. One of my favorite appearances of Murray Hamilton is in The Hustler, a small little role in the middle there. Paul Newman goes to play him at his house, and his character, Murray Hamilton's just great, a pool hustler himself. He says, I don't play pool, Mr. Felsen, I play billiards. It's a great performance, and he hangs right in there with Paul Newman and George C. Scott. So you got to realize that he was around, from Alfred Hitchcock Presents to all these different shows. On IMDb, he has over 160 credits. Murray Hamilton was born in March 24th, 1923 in Washington, North Carolina. He displayed an interest in performing during his days at Washington High School in Washington, North Carolina, just before America's entry into World War II. Bad hearing kept him from enlisting, so he moved to New York City as a 19-year-old to find a career on stage. I'm switching around different articles here, but these pages I will post in the show notes, As always, you can go to our show notes at JawsOB over at telegram.com at JawsOB. At age of 19, he moved to New York City. He made his Broadway debut in 1945 in The Wind is 90 and went on to appear in several other plays, including Mr. Roberts, Critics' Choice, and The Best Man. Very interesting that Jaws actually had two very prolific stage actors. You had Murray Hamilton and you had Robert Shaw, who was also a Broadway stage actor, and he also performed on stage in the UK. That's what makes Jaws so memorable, is that these two characters were, these two character actors, these two stage actors, very well trained, came to the set of Jaws and brought all their experience to those two roles of Quint and Larry Vaughn, Mayor Larry Vaughn. Remember how in this past episodes with the Selectmen series, we've been highlighting elements of the lives of the real actors and how we can tell a little bit about the character of that Selectman from the actor that portrayed him. So if you look at Murray Hamilton, and he has all this stage experience from 1945 all the way up to 1974 when they're filming Jaws. So we're looking at almost 30 years. If he's now acting as the mayor that's on this island with a seasoned politician, a seasoned islander, and how he's talking and treating Chief Brody and Matt Hooper, who are new to the island, who are not seasoned islanders, you have more of an air of elitism and an air of that he knows better than they do. That would be some of the elements of the real life Murray Hamilton drawing upon this as he's confronting a Matt Hooper or a Richard Dreyfuss. His performance, why do some people regard the Larry Vaughn performance of Murray Hamilton as the best of his career? It's clearly the biggest movie he was ever in. He was in a lot of big movies, but it was also the most memorable performance because he was able to use a lot of himself in that performance. And that's what makes the most memorable performances for some of these actors, is when you can actually be yourself, just be the character and draw from your own life experiences. And that's what Murray Hamilton would have been doing here, because he was a very seasoned actor at the time of filming Jaws. Very interesting. That's just my opinion. That's just how I'm seeing it. It's something to think about, that by the time Jaws was being made, he was already a stage actor and in movies and TV shows for almost 30 years. Hamilton was a familiar face on the small screen, appearing in dozens of TV shows like Twilight Zone, Perry Mason, The Untouchables, Gunsmoke, Love and Marriage, Columbo, and MASH. So Jaws and Jaws 2. Hamilton's most famous role was that of Larry Vaughn, the mayor of Amity Island in the fictional seaside resort town that is terrorized by a great white shark in Jaws and Jaws 2. Hamilton portrayed Vaughn as a greedy and stubborn politician who refuses to close the beaches despite the shark attacks, putting the lives of the tourist residents at risk. Hamilton's performance was praised by critics and audiences alike, and he became one of the most memorable villains in cinema history. Hamilton reprised his role as Vaughn in Jaws 2, which was released 3 years after the original film. In this sequel, Vaughn is still the mayor of Amity Island, but he has learned his lesson from the previous shark incident and is more cooperative with the authorities. However, he still faces pressure from the business owners who want to keep the island open for tourism. Hamilton's role was smaller in this film than in the first one, but he still delivered a convincing performance. Hamilton was approached to reprise his role as Vaughn again in Jaws: The Revenge 1987, the fourth and final installment of the Jaws franchise. However, he died before he could accept or decline the offer. So they actually were thinking about putting him in Jaws: The Revenge. But then death from lung cancer. Hamilton was a heavy smoker for most of his life, which eventually led him to developing lung cancer. He was diagnosed with this disease in 1985 and underwent chemotherapy and radiation treatments. However, his condition worsened and he died on September 1, 1986, at his home in Washington, North Carolina. He was 63 years old. Hamilton's death was mourned by his fans and colleagues. He was survived by his wife, Terry DeMarco, whom he married in 1953, and his son, David Hamilton. He was buried in Oakdale Cemetery in his hometown of Washington, North Carolina. Murray Hamilton's last acting role before his death was from his friendship with fellow actor George C. Scott, who helped him get a part in The Last Days of Patton, 1986, a TV movie about General George S. Patton's final days after World War II. That was in Hamilton's last acting role before his death. And there's a quote from Wikipedia. Hamilton once said about his acting career, quote, "I don't care whether I play a good guy or a bad guy. I just like to play guys that are real," end quote. So what about that? He just likes to play guys that are real. And then that is why he was always a character actor, and he would always jump around, and he would be in these little roles, but they were memorable roles. And the reality is what he was focused on. He wanted the guys to be real. So that's why we are here explaining Vaughn's reality that Murray Hamilton injects into the role. Some trivia here. He appeared in 4 films that were nominated for Best Picture Oscar. Anatomy of a Murder, 1959, The Hustler, 1961, The Graduate, 1967, and Jaws, 1975. He appeared in 5 films that have been selected for the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being, quote, culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Anatomy of a Murder, 1959, The Hustler, 1961, Seconds, 1966, The Graduate, 1967, and Jaws, 1975. What a resume on this Mr. Hamilton. And on my Jaws wall, I have 2 autographs on my Jaws wall. I have Robert Shaw and I have Murray Hamilton. And those are the 2 characters that I've always been affected me the most when I watch Jaws. I always felt that Jaws was the yin and yang of it all, was Quint and Mayor Vaughn. 2 residents, 1 island, opposite ends of the spectrum. They clearly have both a way of dealing with the shark in their own way. And one of the great honors that I had when I received permission to publish the Book of Quint by the Benchley family, one of the greatest honors was able to explain more about these 2 characters and how they are intertwined. Through the Book of Quint, those details would be able to be made more official. That is such an honor for me, because what really is there is a subtext to these performances. These guys play off of each other. Even when they're not in the same scene, there's still something going on there. It's exciting to tap into that. I want to get into the Selectmen, the actual history of the Selectmen. One of the things, I'm going to go grab a Book of Quint over here. We're going to have a reading from the Book of Quint, page 302. This is in chapter 42, chapter 42 called the title Drought. There's one paragraph in here, and it provides a history into the Selectmen you see in the movie Jaws. That I really wanted to establish that these are not just some random folks. There is actually something going on there of why are these 5 men sitting together in that order. So in this paragraph, I'm going to read it right here on page 302. The 5 selectmen all established businesses around the island and made out like bandits. One had hotels, another had a bicycle rental business, which later turned into car sales. The monopoly of grocery stores and gas stations was owned by another. Vaughn had the property and land holdings. The last guy had the waterfront docks and shipping contracts. All of them became millionaires. They owed it all to Vaughn and would do whatever he asked. They were the law. What I wanted to show was there's details given in the Book of Quint that show that it was Larry Vaughn that actually is leading the hierarchy of it all. It shows his importance to the island and his adoration by the people as well, not just the selectmen. But one thing that what I always found fascinating was that if you read Mario Puzo's The Godfather, he always talks about the 5 families, okay? That New York City was actually controlled by 5 families. Now I'm going to switch over to some Godfather lore here. In the characters, the 5 families are 5 major mafia crime families in the novel and the film The Godfather. The families are based on the real-life New York City 5 families, 5 major Italian-American crime families. So Mario Puzo, I believe, made these up, but he used this same model that it actually existed back in that time as the 5 families. And the 5 families in The Godfather, the Corleone family, the Tatalias, the Barzinis, the Cuneos, and the Strachis. So those 5 families actually, and they each had their own expertise, their own little section of underworld crime. One had like the Corleone family had the olive oil business, and they had the judge. He had the judges and the politicians. Tatalia's had prostitution. The Barzinis were trying to move in on narcotics. So there was all these different. It was almost divvied up that New York City and the 5 boroughs were divvied up between these 5 families. So my interpretation of Jaws was that these 5 selectmen, it seems that back in that era in the 70s, that's because of the popularity of The Godfather, that era, everybody was very heavy-handed with the mafia references and the mafia subplots. That's what famously the Jaws novel had, with Peter Benchley actually had a mafia subplot in there behind Larry Vaughn, and that was removed for the movie. Also, it also finds its way into Hank Searle's novelization of Jaws 2, and he was going off of the script from Dorothy Tristan and Howard Sackler. So there's also some mafia business in Jaws 2. It seems like there was a lot of that going on back then, because everybody was enamored with mafioso and all that, and all the crime lord, the gangster stuff going on, right? That was the flavor of the decade there in the 70s. But what I see it as I'm not seeing it as a mafia type thing. I'm seeing it that this is just logically how this island government body worked, is that you would have the 5 most influential individuals that actually were there first. The families were there first, and they were able to divvy up parts of the island because that's what the selectmen did with either government contracts or just how that things worked. One guy would have had the shipping contracts and the docks. Another guy had hotels. Mayor Vaughn obviously had realty and real estate because he comes out of Vaughn's Realty. It's written on the side of his car in Jaws with the Vaughn Realty placard that's on his car. And then you had the other ones like Harry Kiesel, obviously bicycles. And if you ever go over to Nantucket or Cape Cod or Martha's Vineyard, you actually see car rentals are really, really a lucrative business, with Amity Island being a third island that we've established here on the Jaws Obsession. That a car rental business on Amity Island would be very lucrative for tourists that would be coming in. So that's where I imagine Harry Kiesel's family would branch into that. So that's why you have the reference to Kiesel's car rental of Amity Island in the Book of Quint. So all these things actually come into play, and they need to be there because we have to realize that that is what's motivating a lot of these selectmen to follow Larry Vaughn and to blindly vote with him. And also, we're going to actually see that's actually going to play into how the selectmen are in Jaws 2. It's absolutely fascinating. And that's what I tried to do with just that one simple paragraph in the Book of Quint. Give you that context, all right, to draw more subtext out of what, when you watch Jaws, you now have some context that there's a history behind those guys that are sitting at that selectman desk inside the town hall in that scene. I always thought that the 5 selectmen, the 5 votes, that there were parallels between the 5 boroughs of New York City or the 5 families that were in The Godfather, that we could actually translate that over to Jaws, because that's going to play an important role coming up here, as you'll see when we go into Jaws 2. So moving on. So what did the last 4 episodes tell us? We learned some things in the past that we're going to have to really focus on and take note as we move into the movies here. We're going to remember that the 4 selectmen each had a role within the town, okay? So those 4 selectmen, other than Larry Vaughn, they each had a specific role that they filled at that table. The odd selectman out was Harry Kiesel. We did highlight how in the original script that he objected to the 24-hour rule. He wanted the beaches to be closed because he was the only one on the beach when Alex Kittner was attacked and killed. Okay, so he's seeing it as, that could have been him. So he was actually affected in a real sense. He was going to object. Research into the screenplay, even though it's not canon because it's not in the movie, the line is not in the movie, we actually can infer he was going to come out in support of Chief Brody, because he goes to stand up in that one wide shot as Mr. Posner stands up after everyone starts objecting and yelling about closing the beaches. You can see Mr. Harry Kiesel start to stand up, and he's also got that smile on his face when he sees Quint. It's very special. So we got to watch what happens to Harry Kiesel between Jaws 1 and Jaws 2. We also have to look at the wild card, Mrs. Taft.
I don't think that's funny at all. I'm sorry. All right.
Yes, that Mrs. Taft. She is the outspoken voice inside the town hall.
Are you going to close the beaches?
So we have to watch what's going to happen to this character. She's a very important character. In fact, we really have to get to a Mr. and Mrs. Taft episode because there's so much to analyze. There's a lot of crosstalk and behind the scenes talk or background chatter between them that we can get into. But right now, we have to focus that she's right front and center. She's a business owner, and she is right there trying to find out the facts because she's invested into what is going to happen to the tourism industry for that summer. That's very important. So we have to keep all of that in mind. What we've learned in the last 4 episodes between Mr. Polk, Mr. Posner, Mr. Kiesel, Mr. Denherter, and now Mr. Vaughn, but also Mrs. Taft here. It's very important. We're going to keep her in mind as well. This episode will also sort of piggyback onto episode 38. It's all psychological, where we went into Mayor Vaughn's motivation and actually how he fights to control the narrative in Jaws. That he knows that there's something going on. He knows a lot more about sharks than he's letting on, and he's just allowing Hooper and Brody to kind of flail and hang themselves when they don't have evidence. So then he can be blasé about it or obtuse, or he can disregard their alarming posture, the posturing that they have. The mayor is not just concerned about closing the beaches to save that he can't close the beaches to save some dollars. He's really worried about bringing Quint in, officially bringing Quint out of the shadows, officially bringing Quint into the spotlight by signing a contract to hire him. There's a lot more going on there, and you have to look at episode 38 develops this more, but we're going to, the understanding of episode 38 is that there is a background that we reached, the conclusion that we reached from that is that there is something going on in the background between Quint and Mayor Vaughn, that there is evidence in Jaws. There's the immortal line,
Get the mayor off my back so I don't have any more of this zoning crap.
You've got that.
get the mayor off my back so I don't have any more of this zoning crap. So there is evidence in there from that one line that the mayor and Quint were butting heads. We all have to keep that in mind as well. But I wanted to really go back and take another look here. We're going to take a look at 1 hour and 4 minutes into the movie in the hospital.
Want me to bring anything from home?
My cars.
Your cars. What about ice cream?
Coffee.
Coffee.
So there we have Ellen Brody, Martin Brody, Holden Shawn, and we see the mayor, Larry Vaughn, wander in aimlessly into the hospital.
Want to take him home?
So now we're going to have that confrontation between Martin Brody and Mayor Larry Vaughn. Now you have to, the Jaws Secret, episode 40, the Jaws Secret. We went over this in great detail. And that's, I encourage everyone to go back and listen to episode 40. But we're going to look at this with a little bit more light here, this conversation.
I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. Got a pen, Larry?
Pen. Yeah, pen, you know.
Because you're going to do what you do best. You're going to sign this voucher so I can hire a contractor.
Okay. What was the motivation for the mayor to show up there? Okay, that's what we have to ask ourselves here. We haven't asked this yet on the Jaws Obsession. Why does he aimlessly wander into the hospital where he knows Chief Brody is? He knows Chief Brody's son is admitted to the hospital, has shock. They did lose someone. The estuary victim was attacked and killed, but obviously the body was never recovered, was taken out to sea, gone. And what is the motivation here? So the mayor wanders in, okay, and he's very flustered. What we're doing now here is we are sort of looking at this, since we've all watched Jaws, we're watching it through Chief Brody's eyes. We're watching a man, he's trying to get inside the mayor's head. He's trying to say, what do you mean you can't sign this? These people think you want the beaches open, that you're the mayor of Shark City. Like, what does he say here? Let's watch this.
I don't know if I can do that without...
I'm going to hire Quint to kill the shark.
What?
August.
What are you talking about? Larry, the summer is over. You're the mayor of Shark City. These people think you want the beaches open.
I was acting in in the town's best interest.
That's right. You were acting in the town's best interest, and that's why you're going to do the right thing. That's why you're going to sign this, and we're going to pay that guy what he wants.
Martin.
My kids were on that beach too.
Okay, this is very interesting here. What if I were to tell you that the mayor actually wanted to approach Martin Brody to cut a deal? What if I told you that the mayor's motivation to coming to that hospital, the reason why he has the loss of words, is because he's trying to figure out a way in order to get Martin Brody to stay silent about the whole thing. Now, that would almost lead him to this way of where he's at a loss for words, he's flustered, he's trying to figure out how to get a control of the narrative here. He's obviously lost it. Chief Brody is now on the aggressive side. He's got the contract in front of him. But we do know that Mayor Vaughn has had a history on Amity Island. And that is what, and I'm not going to create any spoilers here. If everyone would go and read the Book of Quint, you'd actually find out all the details. But in the novel, that we actually supply you with some more facts of why, of maybe Larry Vaughn is remembering something from his past, or the fact that his family was also involved. He says they were on the beach too. But what we're looking at here is I think the motivation was he was trying to get to Chief Brody before Chief Brody did anything rash and went to the media or did anything crazy himself. He wanted to go to Chief Brody and say, listen, how can we work this out? How can we tamp this down? And he says, we have to hire Quint to kill the shark.
Because you're going to do what you do best. You're going to sign this voucher so I can hire a contractor.
I don't know if I can do that without...
I'm going to hire Quint to kill the shark.
And he nods. He goes, we're going to hire Quint to kill the shark. And Mayor Vaughn nods. As in, yes, he's agreeing that, yes, we are going to do that. But what he's trying not to do is he's trying not to do it officially. He wants to do it with shadow money or money from the side. He doesn't want to put his signature on anything. He doesn't want to do anything up front. And that's what Martin Brody is so flustered at. It's not that the mayor doesn't want to hire Quint. That was always the logical decision. It's just that he's trying to figure out how to kill the shark without Quint. And obviously Denherter couldn't do it, which was one of the selectmen, all right? So who was out there rigging up holiday roasts to chains and huge tackle, getting docks ripped out from their moorings. And this whole, them 4th of July, just kind of the 4th of July beach scene just kind of flew in their face. So now he realizes, yes, we have to hire Quint. He's got to go to Quint now. And he nods, so he's in agreement. But the flustering, the stuttering, the stammering, there's something going on there, and he's trying to figure out how to approach Martin Brody to cut a deal. This is very important. This is not conjecture, because as we go into Jaws 2, this is all going to make sense, okay? Remember, Jaws 2 and Jaws, that's all we have is Jaws and Jaws 2 as canon to this story, to these characters, as we know them, as we love them, as they are portrayed by these actors. We cannot rely on the novel Jaws. We can't rely on the novelization Jaws 2. We can't even rely on the screenplays, because these movies had constantly changing screenplays. They had constant adaptations that were going in and out, and none of them ever matched up. So we can only go in what is happening in the movie as what is canon to the Jaws universe. And Jaws 1 and 2, and that's why we're going to be sticking with Jaws 1 and 2 here. We can actually take facts that we're going to learn in Jaws 2, extract what happens, and that's why this scene is so important, because this is the first of what will eventually be the successful deal that the mayor is going to make with Chief Brody, okay? So he's trying to figure out a way, but they have to take care of the shark first. So he does not make his proposal here. So obviously, and he was blindsided by the contract that Chief Brody already has written up. And so Martin Brody's going to get him to sign this contract. But the real purpose of showing up was not to apologize to Martin Brody. It was basically to head Martin Brody off at the pass, to make sure that he doesn't get the word out there, that they keep the story tamped down. And at this point, he realizes the only way to do that is to sign this contract, to get Martin onto the Orca, get him out there and get Quint and take care of the shark and buy some time. He's buying himself some time. That's why he signs this contract, because he knows that he's lost control of Chief Brody in this situation. This is very, very fascinating.
I was acting in the town's best interest.
That's right, you were acting in the town's best interest, and that's why you're going to do the right thing. That's why you're going to sign this, and we're going to pay that guy what he wants.
Martin. My kids were on that beach too. Sign it, Larry.
So he says, sign it, Larry. And he says, my kids were on that beach too. Sign it, Larry. So it was a last appeal to say, you're not the only one that's scared. My kids were on that beach too. He's trying to break out maybe not tell Martin the full truth of the island, but he's trying to appeal to Martin Brody. And now look at the way, this is just such good acting. Look at the way Roy Scheider looks at Murray Hamilton after he signs it. He's got this look of shock and awe, like, I can't believe this guy is still holding on to this. And now we as viewers have watched this movie for coming up on 50 years. And we're just going, this guy's a nut. This guy's just, he's lost it. This guy is just total egomaniac. He's just not signing that. He's being proven wrong. And it's just because, no, there's more going on than just summer dollars. And he's trying to, the whole thing about August, when he's mumbling August, those are like little things he's trying to pepper in his mind, to pepper out there to see if he can actually throw that at Martin Brody about saving August. Because Martin Brody brought that up earlier about, Larry, if we, when they were at the billboard, he brought up August.
Larry, if we make an effort today, we might be able to save August.
August? For Christ's sake, tomorrow's the 4th of July, and we will be open for business. It's going to be one of the best summers we've ever had.
He goes, we can still save August. So now that's why he is mumbling August here, because he's trying to take Martin's logic and throw it back at him in hopes to keep this thing tamped down. Yes, let's hire Quint, but don't go to the media. Let's keep it quiet.
You want the beaches open?
I was.
What?
August.
What are you talking about?
He's saying August. And he said, what are you talking about? The summer's over. So he's realizing that, okay, he's trying to control Martin Brody. There is more going on here. And why is this going to be proven right? This angle of interpretation of this scene. Why will it be proven right? It will be proven right in Jaws 2. And we're going to now get into why is this interpretation of Mayor Larry Vaughn, the leader of the island. He brought electricity to the island, made the other 4 families, the Polks, the Posners, the Denherters, the Kiesels, and now the Vaughn family, the most prosperous families on the island, by bringing tourism there, getting the contracts, getting the ferry terminals built. Why is this man now reduced to a worried, mumbling man behind a hospital curtain, trying to head off a chief of police whose son was also attacked by the shark? That there's something more going on here, and that is going to be proven by all of the events in Jaws 2. So now, as the history goes, the second half of Jaws, the whole second hour, they go out, they get the shark. The shark is dispatched. Quint gets killed in the fight. The shark is blown up, and Brody and Hooper at the end of Jaws.
We get in on those? Hey, what day is this?
It's Wednesday. It's Tuesday, I think.
I think the tide's with us.
Keep kicking.
I used to hate the water.
I can't imagine why.
So there we are. We're left with a static shot of of Hooper and Brody swimming ashore with the yellow barrels after they swim away from the wreck of the Orca. So the viewers of Jaws, myself included, over the years, okay, this is movie's going to be 50 next year, 50 years old, half a century. We have watched Jaws, and we like to think that there is a happy ending. I always had in my mind that Hooper and Brody are going to walk onto the sand, they're going to find their way back into town, and they're going to walk in, and everybody's going to be cheering, and they're going to go right to the mayor and say, "We told you, see, you were wrong." And all of that, it's going to be, and everyone's going to be clapping and having a grand old time. And I'm here to tell you that that is exactly not what happened. That the real ending of Jaws is extremely messy, and that it is evidence as we go into Jaws 2. Not every bad character is exposed, and not every hero wins in the end. That is why Jaws 2 should be taken very seriously, especially after seeing what I'm about to go into. When you marry it up to Jaws, you can actually see the hero's journey that Brody is on is not over by any means with Jaws. It's only in the middle of it all. It's really, it's unfortunate. It's not a dark ending, Jaws, obviously, but I always thought there was a sense of loss. That's why the John Williams score is so perfect there, because Quint lost his life. And so we lost a character that we all grew to love. Then you have the two guys surviving. But what happens in the events afterwards? What happens to Hooper? What happens to Brody? And we're going to get into that because there's clues in Jaws 2 that will tell us. So I'm here to tell you that it's not a happy ending. That's one of the great revelations that we're going to prove here. The Jaws universe is very expansive. I think there's more to the story that needs to be told. After this episode, it's more important than ever. We're going to leave Jaws, the credits, and we're going to go switch over to Jaws 2. All right. So now we're going into Jaws 2. We've touched on Jaws 2 before in the podcast, but this is going to be the most comprehensive look into it. We're going to go do a deep dive into a few of these scenes because it's very, very important to get to a conclusion here. Okay, we're going to have to go to first things first. About 4 minutes into the movie, we're going to have to show the ferry, the Amity On Time 2 ferry, with Chief Brody in his GMC truck. Right when that chain drops, we have the ferry pull in here, and if you look, there's a close-up here. When the chain drops, you're going to see a close-up. So we're going to establish that obviously we're on Massachusetts because the license plate is Massachusetts, but if you go into the sticker, the inspection sticker on the plate, it says December 77. So that means that the inspection is up in December of 77, which means that we are in 1977 when the movie is taking place. When we are in the Jaws universe, we are now in 1977. It's very important because that we've done a number of podcasts about the Jaws timeline. Episode 16, Jaws Timeline Explained. But then we had to come back earlier because it seems that the consensus is that some people seem to think Jaws takes place in 1975. It doesn't. It takes place in 1974, and we have irrefutable proof. We actually established that even further in episode 76, Jaws Universe 1974. But so here we have Jaws 2. We are now irrefutable proof. We are establishing that it takes place in 1977. That's when it takes place because of the inspection sticker on Chief Brody's plate. So that is that is irrefutable. So we have that. Okay. Later on, there is a very important line later on that puts the whole that nails the timeline down to a T. So let's keep going. But I wanted to highlight that at 4 minutes and 9 seconds, the close-up of Chief Brody's license plate, Massachusetts, and it's in 77. So 1977 is when we are now fast-forwarded from Jaws in summer of 74. Now we are in the summer of 77, late summer 1977. That's one of the things I really liked about Jaws 2 is that it offers you more of the topography of the island. It offers you more of the landscape. And if we can come out of the Jaws universe about the making of Jaws 2, some of it was filmed on Martha's Vineyard, which was where all of Jaws was filmed. But then they actually went with a lot of the production was filmed down in Florida. So you're going to see beaches sort of change. And I tried to get into that to offer an explanation. But it also made sense that the white sand that you see on these beaches, it's actually on the eastern side of Amity Island. If you look at the maps that are in the Book of Quint, I tried to explain all that. Also within the book as well, that the beaches actually change because there was an anomaly with how the island was formed, the Amity Island. So here we are. We have to go to the Holiday Inn at 5 minutes into the movie. Chief Brody's walking in. He's putting his tie on. We are now at the Holiday Inn Amity Shores Project. That's what the banner says in the back there. It says Holiday Inn Amity Shores Grand Opening Ball Amity Scholarship Fund Benefit.
Thank you, Amity High School Band, for that eloquent selection.
We see Mayor Vaughn in this luxurious new hotel that was just built on Amity Island.
And now, this year's Miss Amity, Tina Wilcox, will cut the ribbon officially opening this luxurious new hotel.
Cut the ribbon of this luxurious new hotel. Okay, so we know that there is a new real estate, there's a new business venture going on.
This money tree, you may have noticed, is donated by Len Peterson, the builder of Amity Shores condominiums, as a gesture of goodwill towards the community. Let's hear it for Len.
Now we are introduced to Len Peterson, who is now a selectman. But that's going to come up later on. We're going to find out he's a selectman. But Len Peterson is Amity Shores building community. He's the Amity Shores real estate. The Amity Shores project is almost a revitalization project where they are building condominiums and extra housing on Amity. It's about revitalizing. In the background here in this scene, we also see Mrs. Taft sitting next to Mr. Kiesel and Mr. Posner. Okay, so two of the original. So we now have three of the original selectmen are there. Mr. Kiesel, Mr. Posner, who we called the right-hand man of Mayor Vaughn because he's sitting to the right of Larry Vaughn at that desk in the Amity Town Hall scene in Jaws. So Mr. Posner is there, and so is Mrs. Taft now. And she's next to Len Peterson, Mr. Peterson, and now we have, and of course we have Mayor Vaughn speaking.
Honey, would you be a love? Make sure that the bar is open and everyone is taken care of and happy.
Happy, sure.
Okay, so yes, we also have
fantastic lady,
Mr. Peterson.
Don't know what I would do without her.
Really? Neither do I.
So we have Mr. Peterson actually saying, instructing Ellen to go take care of the bar. They're wearing these Amity Shores ribbons, Mr. Peterson and Ellen and whoever is involved with the building project. So what we learn here is that Ellen is the assistant to this obviously very wealthy real estate mogul, Mr. Peterson, who is now part of the Selectmen, Board of Selectmen. But also Ellen has a pretty lucrative job. Okay, Ellen is working for this man who is now with the mayor, obviously, about revitalizing Amity, or building Amity up, I should say, building Amity up into something bigger. We all have to note here that there is no talk of shark. There is no talk of the prior shark, of the trouble. as it was in the Jaws 2 novelization, that there is absolutely zero talk in the first 28 minutes of any shark whatsoever. Between the kids, between anything, between the mayor, between everything. Everything is in the past, but also no one is acting like there was ever a shark. Now, in early treatments and early drafts of Jaws 2, it was supposed to have a darker tone. Amity was all boarded up, that the tourists are all gone. No one wants to come to the island because it was devastated by the shark attacks, the famous shark attacks, almost like the Jersey Shore shark attacks, but it would become very famous. It decimated the tourist industry. And then what happened was Jaws 2 went through a number of rewrites, and the darker tone was changed with a new director. The old director left, and the new director came on, and screenwriter Carl Gottlieb was brought in to do a rewrite where he changed characters and he changed the tone to a more brighter atmosphere. But what happened here, what Carl Gottlieb actually did, was he created an entirely new context to how we interpret the ending to Jaws. Okay? This is very fascinating. It's very fascinating because there is something that happened here. This changed the entire way. Should Jaws 2 have been a darker Jaws 2 with the boarded up shops on Main Street, and it's a ghost town now because it was terrorized by the shark and no tourists wanted to come, that would allow us to infer that Martin Brody and Matt Hooper came back, got right in front of the news cameras, and were like, yeah, we had the shark. You should have seen it. It was this big, and this is wrong. And that mayor was wrong. He tried to, we proved him wrong, and we were right. The good guys won, and the bad guys lost. Then the darker Jaws 2 narrative would hold up. But because it's a lighter narrative, because there's now a millionaire real estate mogul as a selectman, because Ellen Brody has a really nice job as the assistant to this millionaire, and because Chief Brody is still there chumming it up with the mayor, we have to infer that something different happened other than Brody and Hooper coming and spiking the football and declaring victory after Jaws. Very interesting. Everybody keep that in note. So now we're going to fast forward to 28 minutes, 33 seconds into the movie Jaws 2. We don't have time to watch the entire movie, but this is after the water skier attack and the boat blowing up. Tina and Eddie stumble on a dead killer whale on the beach.
I called you as soon as I heard about this because I hear the bites are big, really big.
Well, after we've looked, we'll talk.
All right.
So now we have Martin Brody, Chief Brody, walking towards the dead killer whale with these large bites taken out of it, with a marine biologist, with a scientist herself, okay? It's very interesting. Let's just examine this scene as it plays out, and I will try to give some commentary where it's due.
Here it is. Could you move back, please? Could we have a little air? That's right, move back. Please just move back. Thanks.
What do you think?
First things first. Tip of the snout, please.
We better check the bite radius.
The what?
Shape of the mouth.
Whale's mouth?
Shark's mouth.
What shark?
The shark that did this.
We don't know that, do we?
That's what we're here to find out.
All right, this is fascinating. Check the bite radius of the whale's mouth. No, the shark's mouth. She says, what shark? The shark that did this. We don't know that, do we? Let's listen to that again.
Shark's mouth.
What shark?
The shark that did this.
We don't know that, do we?
Okay, so one thing that always bugged us, Jaws fans, was how can this lady not know about Jaws, about the giant shark that decimated that terrorized Amity Island? We're presuming she's from the Oceanographic Institute. That's the marine biologist they would have brought in. But there's a reason why she doesn't know about this. We just have to now find the explanation. That's what's so important here, is that we have to, as Jaws fans, we have to not say this is a plot hole. We have to find out the reason why she doesn't know. But this scene is very telling. So let's continue on.
So we're here to find out.
And we will.
I can't hear you if you're going to whisper.
111 centimeters.
111 centimeters.
68.
68?
I have had some experience with sharks.
What have you?
Yeah, and I think a great white might have done this.
Carcharodon calcareus?
Right.
What makes you think there might be one in these waters?
Well, it's obvious that a big fish took a bite out of this big fish.
This is a mammal, not a fish.
Don't quibble with me. Is it a shark bite or isn't it?
So he says, I have had some experience. Oh, have you? What makes you think there is a shark like that in these waters?
I have had some experience with sharks.
What have you?
Yeah, and I think a great white might have done this.
Carcharodon calcareus?
Right.
What makes you think there might be one in these waters?
Well, it's obvious that a big fish took a bite out of this big fish.
This is a mammal, not a fish.
Don't quibble with me. Is it a shark bite or isn't it?
Let's take that line for line. There's too much going on here. Okay, all right. Let's take that line for line.
I have had some experience with sharks.
What have you?
I have had some experience with sharks. Oh, have you? She has no idea. She has no idea. You would think that it would have been a national story. You would think that at the very least, they would have known about it at Woods Hole because Matt Hooper was from Woods Hole. So you would think at least the local marine biologist community, the local marine community around Amity Island, from Woods Hole to Nantucket to Martha's Vineyard to Amity Island to Cape Cod, you'd think at least they would know the legend of the 25-footer off Amity. But they don't. She has no idea. And he says, I have some experience with sharks. Oh, have you? So she has no idea. That's number one. Okay? He's trying to say, I have had some experience with sharks. Oh, have you?
Yeah, and I think a great white might have done this.
Carcharodon calcareus?
Right.
What makes you think there might be one in these waters?
Okay. Now she says, Carcharodon calcareus, what makes you think there might be one in these waters? So she has no idea that there was one. There was a giant one. The biggest one in recorded history was in those waters. So something happened Matt Hooper wasn't allowed to tell. Matt Hooper wasn't allowed to tell his story, or at least he wasn't taken seriously, to the point where he was gagged, legally gagged. Maybe he was, something happened where he wasn't even allowed to type up a paper, a report on this shark. So she doesn't know about this. We're talking, that was summer of 74. We're 3 years later, over 3 years later. If you think about it, it's 4 summers later. Summer of 74, summer of 75, summer of 76, and this is summer of 77. 4 summers later, she does not know about that there was a recorded great white appearance on this island. And what's more important is Brody is reluctant to tell her. He's not going, yeah, lady, I'm the guy. I'm the one that blew it up. I'm the one. I watched our own fishermen get killed by it. He's reluctant to tell her. So now he's just kind of feeling around going, I have a feeling some big fish took out a bite out of this big fish. And he's saying, check the bite radius. And I have some experience. He's not telling her. So he's even reluctant to tell her. Why is Brody reluctant to mention the first shark? That's the question we have here.
Don't quibble with me. Is it a shark bite or isn't it?
Possibly. Then again, this is a killer whale. It would have to be a shark of considerable size.
Look, we know that sharks are attracted by blood and thrashing about.
And sound.
Sound?
Sound. Like sonar or radar, they hone in on unusual sounds, irregular sounds, almost any rhythmic low-frequency vibration.
That means that there could be one around.
Not necessarily. These wounds could have been inflicted 15 miles out to sea or more. None of them were immediately fatal. Currents could have carried the body 10 miles further.
We got a hell of a tide this month.
Will you just take care of the crowd, please?
It seems that he wants to tell her. He wants to tell her more details about his history with sharks and that they did have sharks in those waters, but he keeps holding back. Now comes a part where he kind of hints at trying to tell her.
It's either a great white or another killer whale.
She comes to the conclusion it's either a great white or another killer whale, okay, which is kind of absurd that a killer whale would do that type of damage to another killer whale. But she says it's either a great white or another killer whale. Now, what would be if you were Martin Brody, and you would say, well, we did have a shark that was a very large one off of here. There is a history of those types of sharks in these waters. But he doesn't say that.
Well, I'd like to know which.
Well, it's impossible for me to tell when the body's like this. This animal has been ashore for 10 or 12 hours and drifting for a day at least. Every little nibbler in the sea's taken a bite.
I know that dolphins communicate. I mean, they send signals. You don't think that if a shark was destroyed, that another shark could come in?
Sharks don't take things personally, Mr. Brody.
Okay, a couple of things just happened there. Let's go back. We're now at 31:51.
Send signals.
Hours and drift. It's either a great white or another killer whale.
31:25.
Well, I'd like to know which.
Well, it's impossible for me to tell when the body's like this.
Right there. He puts his arm out and he kind of gently pushes Leonard Hendricks to stay away from this conversation. So he doesn't want Lenny saying anything out of turn. He doesn't want Hendricks saying anything that might compromise something, that he's trying to keep a wrap on this, and he's trying to almost gently talk to this marine biologist lady, but not to expose any details of what happened earlier. So he pushes Leonard Hendricks away, saying almost like, I don't want you in on this conversation. That's very interesting to me. He doesn't want him writing it down.
I know that dolphins communicate. I mean, they send signals. You don't think that if a shark was destroyed, that another shark could come in?
Sharks don't take things personally, Mr. Brody.
So that's the only time that he actually hints that if a shark was destroyed, another shark could come. And she kind of goes, sharks don't take things personally, Mr. Brody. It's not that he says, we killed a bigger shark. He doesn't say any of the details. He's just kind of getting around the issue. But the big banger here, the big thing, the big fact of this whole telling conversation is she has no idea there was a history of any great whites, let alone the biggest great white ever. She has no idea about what happened 4 summers ago, and there's a reason for that. We have to find the reason for that. From the beach, we call this Cape Scott. This is the Cape Scott Lighthouse. If you look at the map of Amity Island in the Book of Quint, this is what we call Cape Scott. This is the point where there would be a lighthouse, and this is where the kids like to sail to. It's very hard to get to because there aren't many accessible roads. You have to drive down the beach to get there, which is why there's only a handful of people there. And that's why also we have to infer that Chief Brody drives back because he wants Mike Brody, his son, to go with him, because he says, come back with me, and Andy can sail the boat back. So Chief Brody is now going to drive back in his 4-wheel drive truck while Lenny takes the police boat back to the harbor. So from there, as Chief Brody is looking out to the water, we're now going to go to 32 minutes, 41 seconds into the movie, Jaws 2. Chief Brody walking down the main street of Amity, town of Amity, and he is going to then go to the new town hall. So one thing that I thought was very interesting is the Amity Town Hall says established 1690. That's what I really like. What I find interesting is that there's always these many different dates that are tossed around about how long Amity was around and when it was founded. And one thing that I wanted to establish in the Book of Quint was that Amity was kind of a no man's land, and it had a very shady history, and it was a history of many squatters and settlers that came there. But one thing that Mayor Vaughn would have done was that he would have put out these dates to make Amity more robust in its history. He would have cemented dates because maybe someone was there at one time, even though the town wasn't that technically there. These people moved here at this time. So then he's actually saying established. So all the signage from around Amity might not be historically accurate. It's just that's the way that Mayor Vaughn and now this Len Peterson have been revamping Amity's image. They have been now making it more rustic and more robust with its history in order to bring more dollars there, more people, real estate buyers, as well as tourists. So now we have all of a sudden Amity Town Hall established 1690. I find that humorous, is that there's different dates that are tossed around, as well as changing locations of the Amity Town Hall. You can see that there is if we're going with the Jaws universe, if this is the same island, even though they're going from Martha's Vineyard to Florida and a lot of these different locations, but if you talk about the same island, why is there a different town hall from Jaws 1 to Jaws 2? Well, it's clear that they're just moving things around. They're actually trying to do an image rehabilitation, a rebranding, and that's going to come up later on. So it's very interesting. So there's an Amity Town Hall is where they're going to go into, and Martin Brody is going to intercept the mayor.
I'm showing Summer Reynolds. I think we have a hell of a good season going for us.
Swell, Larry, but I have to talk to you alone.
We're alone.
That's swell, Larry, but I have to talk to you alone. So he has to be alone with the mayor. And the mayor says we're alone. He also says we have a hell of a good season going for us. That indicates that they are now into August. This is not the 4th of July. Tourists are already there, and the season is full on. We are into late August now, around there, maybe even in August, and Mike hasn't started his summer job yet, but the kids are kind of, they're all on vacation and from school. So I would have to say we're into August territory right here.
I think we may have another shark problem.
Are you serious?
All right, 33 minutes on the nose. I think we may have another shark problem. Are you serious?
You bet I'm serious. I've got a half-eaten whale on the beach. I've got 2 persons missing. This whale has got a bite out of it about this big.
Martin, no one has seen a shark. Be realistic.
I think the selectmen should know about it. I know it's just a feeling, but you've got to understand.
First time the first shark is mentioned. Another shark problem in private with the mayor. So here we have a meeting between Mayor Vaughn and Chief Brody. And remember, the last time we saw these guys together alone was behind the hospital curtain in the hospital in Jaws, 1 hour and 4 minutes into the movie Jaws. So we're looking at a different dynamic. There's a different dynamic that has played out, that the relationship between these two guys, something more is going on, in that something changed between the hospital scene to now, between their relationship. Also, Chief Brody doesn't exactly know all the details about what Quint knew, because Quint died on the Orca. So we also know that Mayor Vaughn survived politically. He survived by controlling the narrative. Once the first shark was killed, once Quint died, now Mayor Vaughn was able to go on and control that narrative, because Martin Brody and Matt Hooper never really learned all the details that happened before they arrived on the island. But it's very interesting. All the way 33 minutes, we are now almost given proof that the first shark was erased from the media spectrum. The first shark was not highlighted. It was remember, they had the tiger shark was caught. You had Harry Meadows calling in a favor to Dave Axelrod down in New York City about going wide, taking it national, saying the shark was caught. And then a, quote, second shark rolls around, but it's not talked about as they caught the wrong shark, and it's just one shark that was terrorizing the island. Something happened, because this is the first time anyone has mentioned that first shark. The marine biologist didn't even know about the first shark. So let's go into the office with Chief Brody and Mayor Larry Vaughn.
Larry, for Christ's sakes, I not only have this attack, but I've got 2 water skiers who have
A tragedy, but a boating accident. No fin, no sharks, nothing but a boating accident.
But they're both still missing.
We have a lot of deaths in these waters that never turn up. Are they all shark victims?
Maybe they are.
Oh, bullshit.
Bullshit.
Now, that's fascinating. We just had the mayor say we have people turn up missing all the time in these waters. Are they all shark victims? And Chief Brody turns around and says, maybe they are, because the mayor knows the history of the island. He knows that people have been turning up missing for decades. And then when Chief Brody sort of is angling at the truth, the mayor just shrugs it off. And it's very interesting because the mayor just admitted that they have people disappearing all the time. His 40 to 50 years on the island, his many years as a politician. I mean, we're talking 1951 was when they got electricity on the island. And now we are here in 1977. So we're looking at 1951. So he was obviously after World War II was when the mayor really started ramping up and building on the island. So you're looking at you're over 30 years now. And the mayor's just saying, yeah, we always have people turn up missing. Let's hear that again. What a line.
We have a lot of deaths in these waters that never turn up. Are they all shark victims?
Maybe they are.
Oh, bullshit.
Bullshit? Is it bullshit I got a whale on the beach with a bite in it this big?
What am I, an ass? When you called me, I called Elkins and her bosses. Nothing she saw is proof of anything.
We now have the mayor saying we have a lot of deaths in these waters. That's huge. But it also backs up the theories that we've been building on the Jaws obsession. It backs up the Book of Quint. Everything in that line backs up the Book of Quint. And Chief Brody not knowing about it. He's going, yes, maybe they are. As in, the chief is starting to, I think he suspects there's more to Mayor Vaughn's story that he did not learn from Quint. And he tried to kind of push in there. But now Mayor Vaughn is fact-checking Chief Brody. He's going behind his back. He called up Dr. Elkins, and her bosses. So he must have called the Marine Biology Lab. He called Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. And nothing is proof of a shark attack on the killer whale. Nothing she saw. He's getting a little bit more savvy. He knows about sharks. Okay, we know that the mayor knows about sharks. That is a very, very telling part of Jaws 2 as you watch the two movies in a straight narrative, that something happened where Matt Hooper was not allowed to tell his side of the story.
So that means we're not going to do anything, huh?
Martin, don't press it this time. Well, I've got to get back to work.
Okay. Okay, Larry, but you just remember this conversation. You just remember it.
Don't press it this time. One of the things about this episode 5 of 5, episode 82, Selectman series 5 of 5, we're debunking the bumbling mayor theory. The mayor is not just bumbling. He is not easily forgetful. He is not doing this because of town financial reasons. There's something more driving this decision about him saying, Martin, don't press it this time. Why wouldn't Martin go right back at him and say, yes, I will? It's because they made some sort of a deal. Something happened where Martin was offered a settlement of some sort, and he was able to take that. And that is really what is driving Chief Brody here and his erratic behavior. It's the guilt that he went against his judgment after the events of Jaws and sided with the mayor in order to make things right by the island and also by his family. And we're going to get into more of that. We are building this consensus here. We're not stumbling upon it. We're connecting the dots here. And then we're going to stand back and see the big picture after this episode is done. But these are the dots that we have to connect. And for the next one is we have to go to 39 minutes and 15 seconds into the movie. We have our one and only Matt Hooper reference in Jaws 2. Now, Matt Hooper was an extremely huge part of Jaws. He fought and lived with Martin Brody. He's one of the only 2 surviving members of the Orca crew that went out and fought that first shark. And this is his only reference in Jaws 2. There's a reason behind all that, but let's listen. Here we go. We have the interior of the Brody's living room. We are also at a new house. The Brodys have a new house, okay? The boys are in front of the TV playing Atari, playing Pong, classic Atari game. And Ellen Brody is on the chair. She is on the phone when Martin Brody comes in. And this is what Ellen says. Here we go.
Yes. Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I will. I'll give him the message.
I got it.
Thank you.
All right. Got it.
And for me?
Got it.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, gang.
Well, sort of. Matt Hooper.
5 points.
He's on the research vessel Aurora, presently in the Arctic Ocean, and he won't be in radio range till next spring.
Yeah, I gave him a call.
Very interesting. All right. Remember, they both know who Matt Hooper is. Okay. Especially Ellen. Matt Hooper was over to dinner. Talked about his story about his run-in with the thresher shark. She knows Matt Hooper, but she talks about him like he's very distant.
Well, sort of. Matt Hooper.
5 points.
He's on the research vessel Aurora, presently in the Arctic Ocean, and he won't be in radio range till next spring.
Yeah, I gave him a call.
Matt Hooper is on the Aurora in the Antarctic Ocean, and he won't be in radio range till next spring. And Brody says, yeah, I'll give him a call. But he says it with a very somber tone. Or, yeah, I gave him a call. That's what he said. Brody says, yeah, I gave him a call.
Well, sort of. Matt Hooper.
5 points.
He's on the research vessel Aurora, presently in the Arctic Ocean, and he won't be in radio range till next spring.
Yeah, I gave him a call.
Yeah, I gave him a call. Almost reluctantly saying, yeah, I gave him a call. Now, I understand that all this is going through. We're seeing this as Chief Brody's flustered because he thinks there's another shark. He's got 2 people missing. He's got a whale with a bite this big. But really what's going on is that there's a sense of guilt. There's a sense that something happened. Now, there's 2 things that you can interpret. She could interpret that. She says, Matt Hooper called, or Ellen taking a message about Matt Hooper. Now, I don't think Matt Hooper himself was on that phone. He's out of radio range. So that would be someone that's at the research station, maybe down in New Zealand or in Tasmania, where you would have to leave, because that's where I left when I was on U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Polar Star. When we went down to McMurdo Air Force Base to break ice in Antarctica, we left from Tasmania. But you can also leave from some other areas like New Zealand or even South Africa. So the fact is that he's down on in the Antarctic, and he's out of radio range. He's out of radio range. So I don't think that's him talking to Ellen. Plus, she just says, okay, I'll give him the message. And then she says, the message is about Matt Hooper. It was not that Matt Hooper called. That's how I'm seeing it. But either way, if it was Matt Hooper that called, Ellen is extremely cold here. She's not saying, oh, that was Matt Hooper. Yeah, we just talked about, yeah, remember, he hasn't seen the kids and so long. And the kids aren't even really talking about Matt Hooper. They're not like Uncle Hooper or something. So something happened where now Hooper is very distant from the family over the last 4 summers. Okay, over the last three and 3.5 years. And Brody's reaction is almost like he made a call to try to get Matt Hooper on the phone. And now he's almost like disappointed because he thinks that Matt Hooper would be closer to him had events turned out differently. Very interesting scene. Only time Matt Hooper is referenced in the movie Jaws 2. It's very, very interesting. The odd silence by Ellen, especially afterwards.
You're a mess. Where were you?
I had to go over to Santos. Dragged a body out of the ocean today.
There's no, why did you call Matt Hooper? Well, she knows the history of what happened. So that's why they don't need to talk about Matt Hooper. Very interesting, Ellen's reaction to that whole phone call. Another interpretation, you could say, is that Matt Hooper did call, or he did say to whoever that, tell them I won't be in radio range. I'm out of radio range. Tell them I can't come to the phone. I won't be able to talk to anyone until next spring. Because he doesn't want to talk to Martin Brody. That's another way to interpret that scene, is that Matt Hooper doesn't want anything to do with the Brody family. Either way, the interpretation is there was a falling out. Something happened between Martin Brody and Matt Hooper after the events of Jaws. Let's continue on. 45 minutes into the movie Jaws 2. About 44 minutes, 48 seconds into the film to be exact, the new town beach. There's a rebranding of Amity going on. Okay, this is clearly not the same beach that where Alex Kittner was killed. Everything is mixed up, but you still see the gazebo, you still see the concession stand, you see the changing cabanas. So there's a rebranding going on with Amity Shores, the Amity Shores building project that Peterson has ushered in. This is the town beach that they are calling it now. This is on the east side of the island. They are using the previously uninhabited east side, the untouched beaches that previously you only needed a boat to get to. New roads have been built by 1977. So now these beaches are becoming more accessible on Amity. And Peterson is coming in there and they are making this now. This is the town beach. There's a rebranding going on in that they don't want to go to the old town beach where, remember, that's where that boy got killed. They're almost rebranding the area. Should any of the islanders or any of the tourists come there, they're taking that macabre sense of that a boy was eaten here by a shark back in 1974. They're taking that out of the equation by building new beaches and constructing similar structures, but they're moving it now. So everything's new. But what's being thrown a monkey wrench into the works is that Martin Brody has a shark spotting tower platform, an observation platform, as Peterson calls it here. And one of the tourists stops and talks to Mayor Vaughn about that and Mr. Peterson on this trip to the beach with their prospective real estate buyers.
Maybe nobody noticed. Let's get them all back in the van, huh?
Yeah, come on.
Renee wants to know, what's that man doing way up there?
Man, what man? Yeah. Oh, he's watching, a lookout.
For what?
It's a shark tower. I saw one in Florida. He's looking for sharks.
Excuse me, dear. It's an observation platform. That's our chief of police. He's just checking it.
That's right. You see, normally it's used for bird watching, weather measurements and nature observation, that sort of thing. Ellen, excuse me. Ellen, we're running a little late. Ellen!
So what's very interesting here is that not the tourists don't even know about the previous shark attacks. Successfully, they have been controlling the narrative. They have been extremely successful in this aspect, is that the tourists don't label Amity as Shark Attack City, Shark Attack Island, Shark Attack Beach, like the Jersey Shore was. Remember the Jersey Shore attacks, the famous Jersey Shore attacks that they talk about in Jaws, okay? They almost learned from them. They said, listen, we don't want to be labeled as the Amity Shores attacks. So they tamped it down in the best way they saw, to the point where even the tourists are coming there going, what's that? And he goes, oh, the little girl goes, she's looking for sharks. And they're like, no. Like, you don't think the mom would say, or any of these people would say, oh yeah, because you guys had the shark attacks 4 years ago. You guys had that problem with the sharks or the big shark, right? If it had gotten out into the media, if it had gone live, if it hadn't been tamped down through the courts and through politics, that they would have been known as Shark Attack Island. But because it's hustling and bustling with vibrant tourist activity, because the beaches are open, because no one's talking about the first shark, to the point where even you have a chief up in a shark tower, then they're like, what's that tower for? That's where we're looking at that the mayor and Peterson and Len Peterson and the other three selectmen were very, very successful at moving on from the events of Jaws. But in order to move on, they needed the chief to have full cooperation with them. Let's keep that in mind. In order to move on, they needed the chief's cooperation. They needed Chief Brody's cooperation in controlling the narrative. So let's move on now. So obviously here, he thinks that he sees the shark. He takes his gun out and shoots up the beach. And it's just a school of bluefish. But I want to go to 49 minutes and 37 seconds. We come to Chief Brody's office, and we are focused on an award with a shark jaws on it. And it says Martin C. Brody, which is very interesting. That's his middle initial. Martin C. Brody, Amity Man of the Year, 1975. This is great because this matches up with our entire narrative. For the events in 1974, for the things that he did in 74, in January or February of 75, he's the Man of the Year 1975, Martin C. Brody. That some people have taken this as, oh, Jaws must have taken place in 1975. No. That's a completely wrong way to look at this. The Man of the Year trophy that's on Brody's desk, Martin C. Brody, Amity Man of the Year 1975. We have to look at this that's for the events that were in 1974. In the same way, if we step out into the real world, if you look at the editor, Verna Fields, for Jaws, she won the Oscar for Best Editing, Verna Fields did, at the 1976 Oscars for Jaws, which was released in 1975. So for her work on a movie that was released in 75, she wins the Oscar in the 1976 Oscars. She wins Best Editor. So clearly that is why this now even proves even more that the events in Jaws took place in 1974 because of the trophy that says Amity Man of the Year 1975. But we're not even to that. There's going to be a line that comes up later on that is hands down, it is a lock solid. That's going to prove all of this. But I just wanted to explain that to some people because some people sometimes get this mistaken that Jaws 1 and Jaws 2 cannot fit together because of this trophy. Of course it can fit together because after all the dust settled, after the fall and all of that, they would then have their, maybe even in the spring, they would have their town awards. And the Islanders all get together and they had their banquet. And the Amity Man of the Year was Martin Brody for what he did over the summer of 74. That's why he won Man of the Year 1975. What this also shows is that Chief Brody was given notoriety. He was put up on a pedestal for things that he did, for being the protector that he was. So he was given accolades, okay, by the town. More importantly, it shows that Martin went along with a certain narrative and he played ball. So the selectmen were then able to use that to create a narrative where he became the Man of the Year, and they smoothed it all out from there. That is very interesting because they're focused on this Amity Man of the Year trophy when after he shoots up the beach and right before the selectmen are going to vote to fire him because he's been acting very erratic. He believes there's a shark there, acting very erratic. But what it is he's guilty. He's almost like a man that wants to break out and correct the wrongs of his past. That's why he has animosity towards Peterson. Not that Peterson is hitting on his wife or that Peterson is pushing in on Martin's territory. Martin Brody is not a petty person like that. What Martin Brody doesn't like is inherently Peterson came in on the restructuring and the rebranding effort that happened as part of Martin Brody going along with the narrative to save the town's face in the public eye. Let's continue on. That trophy is very important. Inside Chief Brody's office on his desk there. He then gets the photo and he sees that what he sees is the shark's eye out of the diver camera. Martin Brody, at 52 minutes, 22 seconds into the movie, is walking to the Amity Town Hall with the photo of the shark from the diver's camera. And now he is going to confront all 5 selectmen. This is the new order of selectmen since Jaws. So this is the first time we have seen all the selectmen together since the town hall in 1974.
Well, speak of the devil.
Martin, this is kind of an official meeting.
Good. I'm glad you're all here. I've got something to show you. Look at this.
Okay. Good. This is an official meeting. He goes, Martin, this is an official meeting. Good. I'm glad you are all here. So we now know that this is all the selectmen, all 5 selectmen. Who do we have and where are they sitting? We have the mayor. Then we have Harry Kiesel, Bad Hat Harry from the first movie, Kiesel's Bicycle Rental. We have him sitting there. Then we have Mr. Posner. This is Mayor Vaughn's right-hand man. Then we go down the line. I'm going from left to right here. Then we have Mr. Len Peterson, the millionaire real estate mogul that's there. And next to him, we have Mrs. Taft. Yes, Mrs. Taft, the lady, the I don't think that's funny at all. Are you going to close the beaches? Mrs. Taft. Ellen, you're not an islander. That Mrs. Taft is now a selectman. Very interesting because there has been a realignment. We have lost Mr. Polk, who was the former mayor of Amity. He has stepped down. And we have also lost Mr. Denherter, who was the heavy. He was kind of the guy that would do whatever Mayor Vaughn asked. He was the guy that was out hooking holiday roasts up to landing hooks, trying to catch the shark under cover of darkness and dodging the chief, saying the chief lives on the other side of the island. That Mr. Denherter is no longer a selectman. So something happened between Jaws and Jaws 2 of why those two guys were removed, and they were replaced by Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Taft.
Fogarty just developed it. It came out of that camera from the missing divers.
Seaweed?
So there's Bad Hat Harry, thinks it's seaweed.
I don't know. What is it?
Mr. Posner says...
Water, isn't it? That's why it's so dark.
There's nothing I can see.
What are you talking about? Look at this. That's a shark. Look at the outline. Look at the mouth, the eyes.
Is that what it is? Sorry, I just don't see it.
Neither do I. It's nothing.
So now we have all 5 selectmen, or the 4 selectmen and select woman, but either way, we'll call them all together. They're all the board of selectmen, the town elders, as you might call them, and they're saying they don't see anything in the photo. But remember, they're all there because Chief Brody took the package. Chief Brody took the settlement and allowed them to keep this narrative of that the first shark really wasn't that bad. There was 2 sharks, the tiger shark, and then another shark just came around, and it wasn't that bad.
Martin, it could be anything.
Wait a minute. Are you people telling me I don't know what a shark looks like?
Brody, this is nothing. Seaweed, mud, something in the lens.
Lens my ass.
You're damn right it's your ass.
Now, be reasonable, please.
Reasonable what? With him?
God damn it, will you listen to the man? Will you just listen to him? Be reasonable. Look, Brody, you started a panic on a public beach. You shot up the damn place. God knows who you could have injured. Now, what if somebody decides to sue us? Did you ever stop to think about that? It could ruin us.
You don't have to worry about being sued or being ruined. If this turns out to be what I think it is, because there won't be anybody here.
Yeah, now, Martin, let's not...
Let's not what, Larry? What?
Oh, Jesus, Larry, huh? Come on, let's just forget it. He won't listen. It's obvious the man has made up his mind.
You bet your life I've made up my mind.
Wow.
I'm telling you and I'm telling everybody at this table that that's a shark. And I know what a shark looks like because I've seen one up close. And you better do something about this one because I don't intend to go through that hell again.
Wow. Listen to that line right there that Peterson lets out.
He won't listen. It's obvious the man has made up his mind.
You bet you...
He won't listen. It's obvious the man has made up his mind.
Now, Martin, let's not...
Let's not what, Larry? What?
Oh, Jesus, Larry, huh? Come on, let's just forget it. He won't listen. It's obvious the man has made up his mind.
So the Mayor Vaughn goes, Martin, let's not, he goes, there will be nobody here. Martin, let's not, Martin, let's not talk about going to the media. Let's not talk about people finding out. And then he goes, would you just listen to the man? He's obviously made up the mind. He won't listen.
Jesus, Larry, huh? Come on, let's just forget it. He won't listen. It's obvious the man has made up his mind.
Holy smokes, he won't listen. Let's just forget it. He won't listen. So what were they talking about before Chief Brody walked in? All right, they were talking about the settlement. They were talking about Chief Brody and how do we tamp this down again? How do we control Chief Brody? He sided with us the first time. The mayor was saying maybe he will side with us a second time. Len Peterson says he won't listen. He's obviously made up his mind, as in we've lost control of this man. He used to be on our side. He used to be in control. We gave his wife a job. I gave his wife a job. He's got a bigger budget. He's got more. He's got a bigger police budget now. Free reign around the island. He's got more deputies, more trucks. But now he won't listen. So there's only one course of action, is to fire him, because we do know that Larry Vaughn was vouching for Chief Brody at this meeting before and after the meeting.
Bet your life I've made up my mind. But I'm telling you and I'm telling everybody at this table that that's a shark. And I know what a shark looks like because I've seen one up close. And you better do something about this one because I don't intend to go through that hell again.
Martin, could you wait here for a minute?
For what?
Please just have a seat while we look at the picture and make up our own minds.
All right. I'll have a seat.
For what it's worth. Thank you. Gentlemen, please.
So now the 5 selectmen get up and they go to the mayor's office. There's a standoff, a stare down between Chief Brody and Mr. Len Peterson. And they all go into the mayor's office. Now there's a deleted scene that's played later on where they all vote to fire Chief Brody, and the one vote for Chief Brody is Mayor Vaughn. Larry Vaughn puts up his hand and says he doesn't think that they should fire him. So then they come out, it's a 4-1 decision, and they fire Chief Brody, removing him from his seat. So what we can see now here is this is what has happened. Clearly, Mrs. Taft was ready to go to the media and blow that whole thing up. She lost a lot of money, the whole thing. She was ready to do some lawsuits, and they said, what if we were to give you a Board of Selectmen seat? Will you be quiet? Will you play ball? Will you come over to our side? She said yes. So therefore, Mr. Denherter steps down. She comes into the Selectman seat. Then we have to rebrand Amity. We have to bring in more real estate. We have to bring in developers, developing dollars. So they then get Mr. Polk as a part of the most successful man on the island. And the former mayor uses his contacts to bring in Len Peterson. And he says, if you bring your investment dollars to Amity, I will step down and we will make you a selectman. So now that's where you get the 2 selectmen. Harry Kiesel was allowed to stay because he was one of those guys that said, I told you guys we should have closed the beaches. And he was one of those, okay, let's keep Harry on there because Bad Hat Harry, we don't know what he's going to do. So they kept him as a selectman. And obviously Mr. Posner and Mayor Vaughn stayed in there. Mayor Vaughn wins re-election, still the mayor. Why? Because the narrative was kept that the shark wasn't that bad. That there was the tiger shark, that was the worst one. The tiger shark that killed the little boy. Yeah, we caught and killed that one. And then there was another shark that came around, but it wasn't that bad. The estuary victim, but that could have been a drowning or a boating accident. You know, that was that was back page news. And then we sent a shark hunter out there, and they supposedly killed a big shark, but it wasn't as big as they thought. Now, why? Why wasn't as big as they thought? They needed Chief Brody to side with that official narrative. They needed Chief Brody to separate from Matt Hooper. And that is what happened. That's what I'm seeing is what happened with all these events. Before we get to that final conclusion, we have to go to the 1 hour mark of Jaws 2. The 1 hour mark, a final stamp in our timeline, our official Jaws timeline.
I blew it. I shut off my mouth. I shut off my gun. 4 years down the drain. Shut to hell.
There you go. From Chief Brody himself. 4 years down the drain.
4 years down the drain.
4 years down the drain. So Chief Brody basically, in dialogue, just told us what we already knew, but he told us the entire Jaws timeline, official timeline, is 4 years. We know from Jaws that it takes place in 1974. Please go listen to Jaws Obsession episode 76, Jaws Universe 1974, to listen to the 5 different data points that are extracted from within the movie Jaws to prove that it is 1974. But what we are getting from Chief Brody here is that the entire timeline that the Brodys were on the island is 4 years now. Now, some can say, is it 4 years, like 4 summers? Summer of 74, summer of 75, summer of 76, and now we're in the summer of 77? Or is it actually almost 4 calendar years? And I was able to have a conversation with John Tedder, our technical advisor here, sent some ideas back and forth. We remembered that in Jaws, Ellen actually says when they actually bought the house.
How come the sun didn't used to shine in here?
We bought the house in the fall. This is summer.
So he says, how come the sun didn't used to shine in here? We bought the house in the fall. This is summer. So this is the summer of 74, which means they bought the house in the fall of 73, which means that Martin Brody was interviewed and hired in the fall of 73. We do know that it was Martin's first summer.
We're really a little anxious that you're rushing into something serious here. It's your first summer, you know.
So even Mayor Vaughn says it's your first summer, you know. Bought the house in the fall, 73. First summer, you know. First summer in 1974. And now we go all the way back. We go all the way through to Jaws 2. License plate registration sticker says it's 1977. And now we are in the summer of 77. And we have Martin Brody saying...
4 years down the drain. Shot to hell.
4 years down the drain, shot to hell. So that fits with the Brody family getting hired and buying the first house in fall of 73. And now we go into, here we are, summer of 77. 4 years later, Carl Gottlieb nails it out of the park by writing that line in and locking these two movies together in cohesion. A 4-year timeline. It's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful thing, because we have seen the Jaws community split up into factions. Is it 2 years? Did Jaws take place in 75? Here we are with Martin Brody saying 4 years down the drain. Locking us in. Carl Gottlieb writes line in there for the final shooting script of Jaws 2, and we now have the 4-year timeline. Very interesting. That's extremely groundbreaking here, because it's trying to nail down a Jaws calendar that all Jaws fans could agree on. Starts with, what year does Jaws take place in? And now we can definitively say it's your first summer, you know, the summer of 74. We bought the house in the fall of 73. Go to Jaws 2, license plate says 77, and he says 4 years down the drain. Right, perfect. There it is. It's irrefutable. With that, I want to get into the final conclusions of the Selectman series. Are pretty amazing, because the final conclusions involve Chief Brody and Matt Hooper. That is what's groundbreaking here. We have to establish that the Book of Quint prologue that features Matt Hooper was written for a reason. In that prologue, it's written, Matt Hooper says, don't let any of these people tell you it was a myth. I could tell you all kinds of things that you don't have time for. The scientific community shunned me. They laughed and ridiculed me. They worked with the political machine to silence me. No proof but my own observations and a few others. Nobody can change the facts. I know what I saw. It was their interpretation of those facts that I couldn't control. That was from an almost 80-year-old Matt Hooper. That paragraph, that line of, those few lines of dialogue by Matt Hooper in the Book of Quint were aimed to tie the two movies together even more, Jaws 1 and Jaws 2, because it provides explanation exactly what happened, that the scientific community shunned him and no one believed him, and they used the political machine to silence him. Now remember, let's review what Matt Hooper was like in the movie Jaws when it came to talking
It's just theory that I have
about sharks.
Agree with.
There's three key signs that Matt Hooper would have been talking to other scientists after the events of Jaws. The first clue that he would have been talking to scientists is he was already trying to sound the alarm about a large great white off of Amity. When he's on the phone here,
For me to come to Brisbane when I have a great white shark right here.
so there it is. He's on the phone. He says there's no need for me to go to Brisbane when I have a great white shark right here. As in, why should I go down on the Aurora for a shark research vessel when I have a great white right here off of Amity? That's the first clue. The second clue is when later on, when they first spot the shark.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons on them.
That's a 20-footer, 25, 3 tons of them. Matt Hooper is shocked the way he reacts to seeing a 25-foot shark. To the point is, what's his first reaction? Go get his camera.
Beyond the edge of the barrels. Go to the end of the barrels. Further out. What? Further out. Why? Go further out. What for? Will you go to the end of the pulpit, please? What? Will you please go to the end of the pulpit? What for? I need to have something in the foreground to give it some scale. Foreground my ass. I need to stay here. I'm begging you.
Matt Hooper documenting, taking pictures, looking for proof to document this amazing shark. He's saying it's beautiful. He's loving the shark. He's loving the spectacle of it all. So he's taking photos. Why do you think he's taking photos? Because he's going to want to tell the scientific community about this when he gets back. He's never encountered a shark of that size before. Neither has Quint. It was a unique situation, and Matt Hooper was trying to document it. So the Book of Quint prologue was written to tie Jaws and Jaws 2 together. To make the two more cohesive, you have to show that something happened between Matt Hooper and Chief Brody. After they swam ashore, something happened. Chief Brody is acting very guilty. He's tried to reach out to Matt Hooper. Matt Hooper has been very distant from the family. Ellen doesn't even want to talk about Matt Hooper. What we would like to think was they came back and Matt Hooper was on the cover of National Geographic as the man who documented a 25-foot shark off of Amity Island. That is exactly the opposite of what happened in the Jaws universe, in the reality of the Jaws universe, in Vaughn's reality of the Jaws universe. Brody cut a deal with the mayor and the selectmen. The selectmen had a reformation. They two were added in, as we just explained, and Brody cut a deal. He got extra land. He got an extra house. He kept the other house as a rental property. Ellen got a new job as the assistant to the millionaire real estate developer, Len Peterson. More officers were hired. You see more officers in Jaws 2. Brody's got a brand new GMC truck. There's also other police cars. There's now a police boat, an Amity police boat. A shark tower was installed. So now there was a bigger budget. They said, listen, Martin, if you stay with us, we're going to take care of your family. We're going to give you a pay raise. We're going to give you extra land. We're going to increase the budget to the Amity Police Department. But all you have to do is sign the affidavit that says the shark wasn't responsible for all the killings, that it wasn't that bad, that the first tiger shark was valid and was the cause of the death of Chrissy Watkins and Alex Kittner. And there was the estuary victim, and we all know that, and we went over this in great detail in episode 61, Ben Gardner's Death Explained. We know that Ben Gardner couldn't be possible to explain as a shark attack victim. He was the death of a real boating accident, and that was explained in episode 61, Ben Gardner's Death Explained, for the Jaws obsession. But they went with that narrative, and then Ben Gardner's first mate just disappeared, lost at sea. Who knows? Ran off. Maybe move to another place. Not their problem. Just label them as missing and move along. Chief Brody went with this narrative. And in order to go with this narrative, he would have to break free from Matt Hooper, who wanted to go to the scientific community. He wanted to go to the media. He wanted to tell people about what he saw. But he had no one else to vouch for him because Chief Brody said, I'm not going to do that. Now, Matt Hooper wouldn't need a deal with the selectmen. He has no ties to Amity. He has no family, and he's independently wealthy through his family. So he doesn't need the money. But Chief Brody, at that point in time, made a deal because it was best for his family. It was securing financial security for his family. He sided with the mayor. This is all the events of Jaws 2 prove this. And that's what's shocking about this, is that there was a rift between Chief Brody and Matt Hooper here. I'm not saying they hate each other, and I'm not saying Matt Hooper even hated Chief Brody, because I don't believe he did. I believe Matt Hooper would have saw why why Martin Brody took that stance. And it also leads why Matt Hooper in the Book of Quint is so solemn and reverent of and respectful of Quint, because Quint died in vain. Quint was the hero. Quint put his life and his boat on the line in order to get that shark to tire out and be in a position where it could be blown up, but then is not given the proper credit for it because Quint doesn't have any family. So Matt Hooper takes it upon himself to keep Quint's memory alive. It's the only way he can see how he can deal with what happened with the events of Jaws and Jaws 2. And Chief Brody is guilty about this. Ellen went along, obviously, because it's a better scenario. She got the career. They got the extra income. It's real life. And these things happen. Sometimes you have to take a settlement you don't agree with. Hooper left the island. Hooper was silenced. So he just says, these people are all nuts. I'm out of here. And Brody's reaction to the phone call. He's kind of solemn about it, that he reached out to him, but he can't get a hold of him. He wants to apologize. He wants to say, I'm sorry, you were right. We should have made it big. We should have blown it up. But now there's more people in danger because there's a second shark. This is groundbreaking revelation. If you watch Jaws with this narrative, it's not the happy ending we might think. The third takeaway is Brody's redemption arc is not fully realized in Jaws. It is only started that his arc is not the hero, because after he comes back, if you take Jaws 2 and marry the two movies together, 3 years later, the town is bustling. The town is thriving. There's everyone's running around, no fear anywhere, because there was never really a shark problem. It was all put to the back of the back page press. It was all made to look like it was just a couple of boys with a fake shark fin. It was all made to look like they caught the first shark. The mayor was right. The logical conclusion can only be that Martin Brody took the package and took a settlement, decided not to side with Matt Hooper in a lawsuit or in a full investigation that warranted scientific investigation into why didn't they close the beaches, who is held responsible, are there any lawsuits, what about the estuary victims' family, were they given a settlement, were they taken care of? Martin Brody is actually hiding something and during the events of Jaws 2. And there is guilt behind his reactions. And that's what makes it so amazing. The erratic behavior, the flying off the wall, the way he talks to the selectmen, it might seem like he's unhinged. It's because he's the only one with a conscience. And the mayor even understands that he's hiding information from Martin Brody. And that's why the mayor says we shouldn't fire him, because the mayor is feeling guilty now, watching a good man crack who sided with him again, even after the events of Jaws. So Martin Brody in Jaws 2 wants to right that wrong. That's why he's putting himself on a boat. That's why he's charging ahead. And that's why he goes right in there to take the shark head on himself, because he's trying to right that wrong. Now, as we close this epic episode 82, we have to realize that in Vaughn's reality, after looking at all the selectmen and at the political system and how it extends into the second film, how politics is very messy and how real life is also very messy. We now understand the Jaws ending is not as happy and triumphant as we might think it to be. We lost Quint, but there is still a new battle to be waged. It's the battle of real life, about how to provide for your family. But also sometimes in life, you have to make decisions for your family where the bad guys are allowed to control the narrative. And you have to settle, you have to take a settlement when really everything in you wants to fight and push forward, but you have to be quiet in order to make things right for your family or for the greater good, maybe for the town or for a friend. And that's what Jaws and Jaws 2 is really telling us. And that's what Martin Brody's arc is showing us here, is that it's a reality that we rarely get to see. So many people are confused or so many people are focused on the monster shark and the how unrealistic the monster shark is in Jaws 1 and 2. But if we pull back and we focus on how realistic Jaws 1 and 2, the plight of Chief Brody is that it really is Vaughn's reality. In Vaughn's reality, the bad guy is going to win because he controls the narrative. He has the control of the media and the faith of the people, and the one man that's trying to fight and scream and shout into the wind, the Matt Hoopers of the world, can be silenced. And that's what Jaws 1 and 2 teach us. Now, I don't want to leave you all on a downer here. As we wrap up this Selectman series, this means that there is much more to the story in the events after Jaws 2. There is so much to do here. There's so much to explore. And I want to promise you out there that with the Jaws obsession, we are going to explore that. As the Book of Quint provided more context so we can draw the subtext out of these two movies and the performances in them, there's going to be more information given in the future. And I'm very, very excited to be working on it. And it is exciting to be right at this edge of discovery, to actually see what the true arc of these characters are, what the true conclusion for these characters will be. There's so much more in expanding the Jaws universe. And let this episode 82, Vaughn's Reality, be just another brick in that wall. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for your time. This has been episode 82 of the Jaws Obsession, Vaughn's Reality.
Show me the way to go home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. I had a little think about an hour ago, and it's gotten right to my head. Wherever I may roam, by land or sea or home.
Well, that was exciting. There it is. 5 episodes, 5 Selectmen, and we are down to it. This was the wrapping up of the Selectmen series. What did you think? You can write to me here at jawsob2025@gmail.com. We are going to do an email episode in the next episode where we're going to go through all emails and questions that everybody's been writing in that I haven't gotten to. And we're going to talk about Jaws and all these areas. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great time. The movie Jaws is copyrighted property of Universal Studios. Any references and sampling from the movie Jaws in this episode is intended to fall within Section 107 of the Copyright Act. Copyrighted materials are fairly used for the purposes of criticism, comment, reporting, teaching, and research. The materials used here are protected by the fair use guidelines of Section 107 of the Copyright Act. All rights reserved to the copyright owners. I'm excited. Who is dressing up as Quint for Halloween? I'm excited to get out there. I'm going to take my girls. They're still young enough. They still like to go trick-or-treating, and we're going to go get some candy. And I'm going to have a great, happy Halloween. Watch some scary movies. I think I'm going to watch The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. I want to wish everybody out there great time in the Jaws Obsession. Great, happy Halloween to you all. And thank you very much for listening. We couldn't have done this without you. 82 episodes and counting. So let's keep going, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, and until next week, farewell and adieu, and please show me the way to go home.